How was your day? Maybe you kept going through all of it, even when part of you just wanted to stop and not explain why. There's a man who felt exactly that, keeping going, doing his part, and loving someone in the middle of a war he didn't believe in anymore. His name is Frederic Henry. The book is A Farewell to Arms. Ernest Hemingway wrote it in 1929. Tonight's story is about loving something you know may not last, and choosing it anyway. Get comfortable. If you drift off, that's fine. The story will still be here. Maybe today you loved something you weren't sure you could keep. A person, a moment, a version of your life that felt right but fragile. That feeling is at the center of this book. Every week here, it's one book. Read quietly, no hurry. Tonight it's Hemingway. If you want to know when the next one arrives, there's a subscribe button somewhere on this page. No pressure. Now, back to the story. The year is 1917. Northern Italy. In the summer, the war was going badly. The mountains were beautiful and the river was gray, green and cold. And the troops moved through the dust, and then the mud, depending on the season. Frederic Henry is an American, not a soldier exactly, but a lieutenant in the Italian ambulance corps. He drives the wounded away from where they were hurt. He does his job. He doesn't ask why he's there. The officers eat together, drink together, argue about the war and women and God. Rinaldi is the loudest. The priest is the quietest. Frederic sits between them and watches. The others tease the priest about his faith, his village, his God. It is the kind of cruelty that men fall into when they are bored and frightened. Frederic doesn't join in, but he doesn't stop it either. Here's where it gets interesting. Rinaldi and Frederic are genuine friends, the kind that can only exist between people who share something they can't explain. Rinaldi is everything Frederic isn't, and he loves him for it. Rinaldi mentions the British nurses stationed nearby. Just a suggestion. The way he suggests everything, with complete confidence that Frederic will eventually agree. And Frederic does. He meets Catherine Barkley in a garden. She is tall, her hair fair and pinned under her cap. She holds a rattan stick that belonged to her dead fiancé. The first conversation is awkward, both of them performing. Her fiancé died at the Somme. She is still in it, the grief. Even if she doesn't say so directly, she says she was a fool to let him go without marrying him. Frederic doesn't know what to say. He says nothing useful. Frederic begins to court her. But it's a kind of game, at first. He says the right things without meaning them. And this is the part most people miss. He knows it's a game. And then something underneath him begins to shift. There's more of this story, much more. But not tonight. Tonight, just this far. You don't have to follow every word. Let the story carry you. If tonight helped, even a little, subscribe. Next week, another book. Catherine sees through it. She pushes back gently. She's not interested in being what Frederic needs her to be tonight, and that, unexpectedly, is what makes him stop performing too. And then he kisses her, and she kisses him back. And neither of them expected it to feel like that. Stay with this. It matters later. And then the front calls him back. The spring offensive is beginning. He kisses her goodbye and returns to the mountains and the mud and the work of moving the wounded. Front life resumes. A meal in the dugout. Cheese and wine pass between men. Conversation that means nothing and everything. This is the strange, terrible gift of men at war, the intimacy of shared danger. Frederic is eating cheese. It's late evening. The men are joking, and then the mortar round arrives, and the world breaks apart. He is wounded. Legs, both of them. Shrapnel. The man beside him is killed. Frederic notes this, the fact of the other man's death, the fact of his own blood. With a strange detached calm, Rinaldi finds him. He works fast, the trained hands of a surgeon assessing damage. He says the knee is bad. He says it with his usual bravado, but something underneath is afraid. Frederic can tell. They load him onto an ambulance. The road is rough and long. He drifts in and out. The pain is there, but the shock keeps it at a distance, the way serious injury sometimes does. The field hospital. The smell arrives before anything else. Antiseptic, wood smoke, blood. The sounds of men in pain kept very quiet. The Italian restraint of suffering. Frederic is placed in a bed. He's told he'll be sent to Milan, the real hospital. American funding, proper equipment, surgeons who trained before the war. He is lucky. He knows he is lucky. He doesn't say it. Before he goes, he sends word to Catherine. A short note. He doesn't say much. He doesn't know yet what there is to say, but he wants her to know. The train to Milan. He drifts. The countryside moves past the window. Mountains giving way to plains, giving way to city sounds. He surfaces and sleeps and surfaces again. The American hospital in Milan. His room has a window. The window looks over rooftops. There is a church tower and distant streets and the sounds of a city that doesn't know a war is happening 30 miles north. And then Catherine is there. She transferred, pulled strings, called in favors, found a way. She is standing in the doorway of his room. And now everything that was a performance is not a performance anymore. She sits beside his bed, and she is not performing anymore. Neither is he. The game they were playing in the garden is over. What's left is something quieter and more frightening than either of them expected. She nurses him through the days. They talk through the nights, not about the war, about everything else. Her village in Scotland, his America, what they would do if there were no war. The if is doing a lot of work, the surgery. His knee is operated on, the shrapnel extracted, the joint reconstructed. He counts the ceiling tiles coming out of the anesthetic. Catherine is there when he surfaces. She doesn't make it sentimental. That is the best thing about her. Rinaldi visits. He brings grappa and the news from the front. The usual mixture of bravado and despair. He sees immediately what has happened between Frederic and Catherine. He says nothing directly, but his eyes say you're done for, in the best way. The priest visits too. A quieter visit. He and Frederic talk about love. Whether what Frederic feels is real love or something the war manufactured. The priest thinks real love is giving, not wanting. Frederic isn't sure he knows the difference yet. When he can walk, slowly, with a cane, they go out into Milan together. The cathedral, the market, the trams, ordinary things. And this is the part most people miss. Ordinary things are what the novel is actually about. She tells him she is pregnant. She says it plainly. She doesn't dramatize. He doesn't panic. He takes her hand. And this, the not panicking, the hand-taking, is actually the most important thing Frederic Henry does in the entire novel. They make plans. The kind of plans people make when they need something to aim at. After the war, Switzerland, a house somewhere near a lake, the baby, a life that isn't borrowed. They both know these plans are fragile. They make them anyway. The summer passes, horse races, cafes with rain-fogged windows, the Duomo in the morning mist. These are borrowed days. Both of them know it, and the knowing makes them careful with each hour. The way you are careful with the last of something good. The order comes. His leave is ending. The front needs its lieutenant back. He reads the orders in the hospital room. The rooftops the same as always outside the window. and something closes in him. Their last night in Milan, they don't talk about the war or the baby or what happens next. They talk about small things. And this is what love actually sounds like when people are trying not to say goodbye. He returns to the front. Autumn now, the light different, the mud thicker, the men quieter. The offensive that was supposed to end the war has not ended it. Something has changed in the way the soldiers look at each other. Rinaldi is darker. He laughs harder, the kind of laughter that's actually something else. The priest is more withdrawn, his faith quieter, as if he's stopped expecting to be heard. Frederic notices. He has nothing useful to offer either of them. Then the news arrives from Caporetto. The Austro-Hungarian and German forces have broken through. The Italian line has not just bent, it has shattered. 300,000 men taken prisoner in days. The retreat order comes. And with it, the strange, chaotic energy of an army trying to move everything at once. Vehicles, horses, men, equipment, civilians, all of it suddenly in motion on roads not designed for it. The retreat road. Frederic has seen a lot of war. He has not seen anything like this. The road stretches ahead as far as you can see, packed with soldiers, horses, carts, and frightened people, all moving south in the rain. A family at the roadside. Old man, 2 daughters. A cart piled with what they could carry. They are trying to join the stream of retreating soldiers. No one stops to help them. Frederic doesn't stop either. The retreat has its own gravity. The road bogs down. Frederic's ambulances are stuck. Wheels in mud, the column ahead not moving. He makes a decision: leave the vehicles. His men will go on foot. The ambulances are abandoned in the ditch. 2 sergeants refuse his orders. They simply walk away, into a farmyard out of the column. Frederic draws his pistol and shoots one. The other runs. He has never done anything like this before. He stands in the rain and the column flows past him. His men are fragmenting. Bonello disappears into the column, or surrenders, or deserts, no one knows. Pliani stays. It is just the 2 of them now, moving south with everyone else. The unit dissolved into the larger retreat. Imo is shot. By their own side, in the confusion, in the rain, someone behind them fired on them thinking they were the enemy. It is random. It is meaningless. He is dead in the mud by the roadside, and the column moves past him without stopping. They reach the Tagliamento. A wide gray river. A bridge ahead. Beyond the bridge, safety, or at least a different kind of danger. The rain is steady. Frederic can see the bridge from here. Military police at the bridge. They are pulling officers out of the column, interrogating them, shooting some of them. For the retreat? For leaving their units, for the catastrophe that was never their fault. Frederic watches this happen to the man ahead of him. They pull Frederic out of the column. An officer who speaks German. That alone is suspicious. They begin the interrogation. He can see what the end of this interrogation will be. The river is 10 feet away. He dives into the cold gray river, into the current under the surface. He hears shots above him, or thinks he does. The water takes him downstream, fast and cold, and completely indifferent to whether he survives. He surfaces, downstream, alone. He pulls himself onto the bank and lies there catching his breath in the rain. The Italian army is behind him. His war is over. He didn't end it. It ended around him, and he swam away. He rides a train hidden beneath a canvas tarp. Cold, wet, anonymous among the freight. The countryside moves in the dark outside the slats. He is retreating from the retreat. He has no plan except find Catherine. Milan. The American hospital is nearly empty now. The front has moved. The wounded have been evacuated. Catherine is gone. She's been transferred to Stresa, on Lake Magyar. He changes out of his wet clothes. He finds his civilian things. He looks at the uniform on the floor. He leaves the uniform. This is what Hemingway calls the separate peace. Not a treaty, not a ceremony. Just a man in civilian clothes walking out of a hospital in the rain. The war doesn't know he's gone. That's the point. Stresa, a lakeside town nearly empty in the off-season. The Grand Hotel enormous and quiet. And Catherine, in the lobby when he arrives. He finds her before she sees him. He watches her for a moment first. Their reunion is quieter than the novels usually give you. No dramatic embrace, she stands. He crosses the lobby. She says, "Oh, darling, that is all. It is enough." The relief is too large to perform. Count Greffy is in the hotel, 94 years old, playing billiards alone. He invites Frederic for a game. They talk about love and death, and what a man believes when belief becomes difficult. Greffy says he has outlived certainty. He seems perfectly content. Their evenings in the hotel room. The lake beyond the window. They have stopped talking about after the war and started just being. This is what the novel is quietly arguing, that the present moment, when you are paying attention, is enough. Almost. Emilio the bartender comes to find Frederic. He says the carabinieri are coming in the morning. They know a deserter is here. He says this quietly as one man to another. Then he goes back to the bar. They will row across to Switzerland. It is 35 kilometers. In the dark, in the rain. Emilio has a boat. They will go tonight. Catherine says all right. She doesn't hesitate. This is one of the things about her. They dress quickly. Take only what they can carry. Frederic retrieves the boat from the dock below the hotel. The rain has started. Lake Magyar in the dark is enormous. There is no shore on the far side that he can see. He rows. For hours, his hands blister and then go numb. Catherine sits across from him, a dark shape in the dark. She asks occasionally how he is doing. He says fine. She knows he is not fine. She doesn't push. Dawn, the rain lighter now, and there ray cold real, the Swiss shore, pine trees, a different color of sky. They row the last 100 meters not speaking. They have made it. Swiss border police, polite, formal. They examine the passports, ask questions, note the circumstances. The war is across the lake. It is essentially another world. The officers stamp their papers. And that is it. They are officially refugees. There is paperwork. There are conditions. They must remain in Switzerland. They cannot work. They will be watched. This is freedom, with forms attached. They accept every condition without discussion. They move to Montreux, a chalet on the hillside above the lake, rented for the season. Wood fires, snow beginning on the higher peaks. The war a rumor from another continent. A quiet winter. Walking in the snow, eating together, the ordinary miracle of two people who are happy and know it. This is Hemingway at his most generous, giving them this before what comes next. Catherine's pregnancy is advancing. She moves more slowly now. She is worried. She doesn't say so directly, but she says, "I'm afraid of the rain." She told him this before in the garden, the first weeks. He remembers. So do we. Frederic reads. Walks the mountain paths above the chalet. Tries not to think too far ahead. This is how you live inside a happiness you don't fully trust. You walk, you read, you don't think about the thing you're afraid of. Spring comes slowly to the mountains, and with the spring, the time. They will move to Lausanne, where there is a proper hospital. Catherine packs slowly. She looks at the lake below for a while before she closes the case. Lausanne, a city on a hill above the lake. Clean, orderly, Swiss. They check into a hotel near the hospital. The room has a view of the water. Catherine says it's lovely. She means it. She is trying to mean everything she says now. Catherine checks into the hospital. There are forms. There is a room assigned. The nurses are efficient and kind in the Swiss way. Competent without warmth, which is its own kind of warmth. Frederic carries her bag. The labor begins, and it is long, longer than the doctor expected. Catherine is tired in a way that Frederic hasn't seen her before. Not frightened, exactly. Just very far inside herself, working at something enormous. Frederic waits in a cafe across the street. Rain on the window, coffee going cold. He watches the hospital entrance. The doors opening and closing, nurses passing, nothing that tells him anything. This is the hardest kind of waiting. The kind where you can't help. The doctor comes across to find him. There are complications. He doesn't say exactly what. Frederic doesn't ask exactly. But the word complications lands like a stone. He crosses the street and goes back inside. A cesarean section. The doctor explains it gently. Catherine nods. She has always been braver about the clinical facts than Frederic. He waits outside the surgery. The corridor is white and very quiet. The baby is born. There is a silence in the surgery that lasts too long. Then, sounds of activity, voices low and quick. The doctor working. Frederic on his bench outside the door, listening to what he cannot interpret. The doctor comes out. He speaks carefully, directly, the way doctors do when there is nothing left to cushion. The baby did not survive. Frederic sits with this for a moment. Then he asks about Catherine. He goes into the room. Catherine is awake. She looks at his face and she knows. She has always been good at reading his face. She says, "Was it a boy?" It was. She closes her eyes for a moment. Then she opens them and looks at him. She is hemorrhaging. The doctors move fast, nurses appearing. The room filling with urgency that she watches from inside herself with strange calm. Frederic is asked to step back. He steps back. He is asked to wait outside. He goes. He sits on the bench in the corridor again. The same bench, the same white wall. If you drift off now, that's all right. The story will still be here. The doctor comes to the corridor. And Frederic knows before he hears the words. This is one of the things about Hemingway. He doesn't give you the words. He gives you the moment before the words, which is worse. He goes into the room. He says goodbye. Hemingway doesn't tell us what he says. He says it was like saying goodbye to a statue. And then he walks out into the rain. That is the last line. The novel ends there. It ends in the rain. He walked back to the hotel in the rain. That is all we are told. No resolution, no comfort. The rain falls. The lake is where it always was. And the novel trusts you to carry the rest of it yourself. That's the story. And now, before we go further, it's worth pausing here. Because the man who wrote that ending lived it first. Not exactly, but close enough that it cost him something real to write it down. Ernest Hemingway was born in 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois, a quiet religious suburb of Chicago. His father was a doctor. His mother was a musician who dressed him in girls' clothes until he was old enough to object. He objected early and often. He wanted to be a journalist. He became one. The Kansas City Star at 18, then the Red Cross ambulance service in Italy at 19. He got to the front in June 1918. He was there 3 weeks before a mortar round found him. The wound. 227 pieces of shrapnel in his legs. He carried an Italian soldier to safety first. Already wounded himself. He later said he felt his soul leave his body and return. He wrote about it for the rest of his life. He was taken to the American Red Cross Hospital in Milan. His nurse was Agnes von Kurowski, 26, American, kind, extremely competent. He fell in love with her completely. She was more measured about it. He recovered. They had a summer in Milan. Walks, horse races, cafes. He planned to marry her. He returned to the front briefly. When the war ended, he went home. And then Agnes wrote him a letter. The letter said she had met someone else, an Italian officer. She said their romance had been more of a mother and son relationship. He was 19 when she wrote this. He did not speak of it for years. Then he wrote a novel. He went to Paris in 1921. Gertrude Stein told him he and his friends were a lost generation. He used the phrase as an epigraph, Paris in the 20s. Fitzgerald, Pound, Joyce, Stein. A decade of trying to make sense of surviving. The Sun Also Rises came first, 1926. The wound made public, the disillusion named. Critics recognized something new in the prose, short sentences. The world described exactly as it appeared, without interpretation, as if the narrator had given up on meaning and trusted the facts. A farewell to arms began as several false starts. He wrote it in Key West, in Paris, in a cabin in Wyoming. He drafted it in 6 months. Then he rewrote it. The ending alone, 47 times. 47 endings. Here's where it gets interesting. The famous ones: an ending where Catherine survives, an ending where Frederic reflects on the war, an ending with one short paragraph, an ending with nothing, just the rain. He chose the rain. The iceberg theory. Hemingway believed a writer should know everything about a story, and then leave most of it out. What the reader doesn't see still works on them. The weight of what's missing is what gives the sentences their gravity. The prose. It was cold and the wind was blowing and we knew it was all over. That sentence. Read it slowly. There's no explanation, no adjective for grief. The cold and the wind do the work. The "wa" includes you. The rain. Hemingway said he used rain to mean death, or the approach of something terrible. Rain appears in almost every crucial scene. The retreat, the river, the night on the lake, the hospital, the last walk. The weather is not backdrop, it is argument. The novel was serialized in Scribner's magazine beginning in 1929, banned in Boston for content deemed obscene. The profanity, the sex, the suggestion that a man might simply leave a war he found unjust. It sold 80,000 copies in the first 4 months. The critical response was not entirely kind. Some found Catherine too passive, too perfect, a projection of what a man wants a woman to be in wartime. Some found Frederic too passive in a different way, drifting through events rather than driving them. Both observations are true, and the novel survives them. Veterans wrote to Hemingway. Letters that said yes, exactly that is what it was. Nurses wrote. Women who had loved men in that war wrote. Readers who had lost someone wrote. The novel was receiving letters for years. Some were angry. Most were grateful. Hemingway's own life moved fast after the novel. A second marriage, a third, a fourth, Africa, Spain, the Spanish Civil War, where he reported and fell in love again and wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls. The pattern in the fiction kept repeating in the life. The Nobel Prize came in 1954. In his acceptance speech, read on his behalf because he was too ill to travel, he said the writer's life is at best a lonely one. He cited the novel, this one, as the beginning of learning what he was trying to do. He died in 1961, a shotgun, in Ketchum, Idaho. The wounds from the war, the physical ones, the others, had never fully healed. He had been hospitalized for depression. His father had died the same way. He was 61 years old. What he left: 10 novels, 100 short stories, the Nobel Prize, and a style so distinct it became its own category of imitation. Half of bad American writing in the 20th century was someone trying to sound like Hemingway without understanding why the sentences worked. The sentences worked because of what was left out. Because he had been there, on the road at Caporetto, in the river, in the hospital. Because the iceberg had weight. The things he didn't write were things he knew. You don't have to follow every word from here. The book will still be here. Let the images carry you if the words get heavy. This is the part of the night where you can let go a little. World War I. It is difficult now to understand what the war meant to people who lived through it. It was not the Second War, with its clearer villains and its more legible meaning. This war arrived without sufficient reason and killed without sufficient pattern. 9 million soldiers died. 21 million were wounded. Frederic Henry's number, 227 pieces of shrapnel, is a small number in this accounting. The war treated arithmetic the way weather treats a plan. Italy entered the war in 1915 with ambitions and a deal made in London, land in exchange for joining the Allies. The Italian soldiers were largely not told this. They were told they were fighting for honor. They fought on the Isonzo 11 times. The Isonzo battles, each one a variation on the same catastrophe. Infantry sent uphill against machine guns and artillery. The generals in the rear. The ground taken and lost and taken again. The river below, indifferent, running always to the sea. Caporetto, October 1917. The Germans provided the tactics. Infiltration by passing strongpoints, going deep before the Italians could respond. The Italian line didn't bend, it dissolved. 300,000 prisoners in 72 hours. The Tagliamento executions were real. Officers were pulled from the retreat and shot for losing the battle that the generals had lost. Hemingway read about this. He gave it to Frederic. The jump into the river was fiction. The executions were not. The VAD nurses, Voluntary Aid Detachment, British women who volunteered for the war, driving ambulances, nursing the wounded, handling the logistics of suffering. Catherine Barkley was built from several of them, and from Agnes von Kurowski, and from what Hemingway needed her to be. Love in wartime. The pattern appears across the literature of WWI, brief, intense, the sense of borrowed time making everything more vivid. Vera Brittain wrote about it. Wilfred Owen hinted at it. Hemingway wrote it as the center of the novel, not as consolation. Switzerland was where the exhausted went. Neutral, clean, orderly. Escaped prisoners of war were technically interned, but rarely harmed. Writers, diplomats, deserters, all moving through Geneva and Lausanne and Zurich on their way to whatever came after. The country kept everyone's secrets. The lost generation. They had grown up being told that war was heroic, that nations were worth dying for, that sacrifice produced meaning. The war proved none of it. What they had left was each other, the work, and a certain careful attention to the present moment. This is the part of the night where you can let the images carry you. The mountains, the river, the lake, the rain. You followed Frederic from the Italian front to the Swiss shore and back through the life of the man who wrote him. That's enough to hold. The novel's real argument is not about war. It is about the inadequacy of any available response to loss. Courage doesn't prevent it. Love doesn't prevent it. Running doesn't prevent it. The rain falls on all of it equally. And yet, the novel keeps being read. 90 years. Different readers, different centuries, different wars. Something in it stays. Maybe it's the sentences. Maybe it's the rain. Maybe it's Frederic walking back to the hotel alone, and the reader walking with him. Let's go deeper into the novel now. Not the plot, but the architecture underneath it. The things Hemingway built into the structure that most readers feel without quite naming. Starting with the title itself, A Farewell to Arms. The arms are weapons, Frederic leaving the war. But arms also means embrace. Farewell to holding. Farewell to Catherine. Both meanings were always there. Hemingway knew exactly what he was doing. The title comes from a George Peele poem written in 1590. A soldier giving up arms as he ages. His golden locks time hath to silver turned. Hemingway found it and borrowed it, and turned it into something much darker than Peele intended. The separate piece. This is what literary critics call Frederic's desertion. His decision to opt out of a war that has become meaningless to him. It is the moral center of the novel. And Hemingway never quite tells us whether it is heroic or cowardly or simply human. Is it cowardice? Frederic shoots a man for deserting and then deserts himself. Hemingway doesn't resolve this. The novel doesn't apologize for the contradiction. This is what makes it honest. People contain contradictions, and the war made them worse. Catherine Barkley. Critics have argued about her for 90 years. Some say she is too perfect, a male fantasy of the ideal woman, someone who wants nothing for herself except to be loved by this man. And there is truth in this. But other readers argue something different. Catherine is in grief when she meets Frederic. She is playing a game too. She says so. And as the novel progresses, she becomes steadier, clearer, braver than he is. The Lausanne scenes are hers, not his. She knows the rain means death. She says it early. In the garden, the first weeks. I'm afraid of the rain because sometimes I see me dead in it. Frederic dismisses this. The novel does not. The rain keeps coming. This is the part most people miss about Catherine. She is a prophet in the novel. She names what is coming and is not believed. The classical word for this is Cassandra. Hemingway may not have planned it that way. But it is there. Frederic Henry as narrator. The novel is told entirely from his point of view, which means we only know what he notices, what he reports, what he understands, and there are things he clearly does not understand about himself. The narration is honest about his limits. He tells us he loves Catherine, but he is slow to understand it himself. The love arrives ahead of his comprehension of it. He is still performing courtship when he is already past it. This is one of the most human things in the novel, and the least commented on, the priest. He appears in only a handful of scenes, but he is the novel's moral compass. The one character who has thought about love as something other than wanting. He tells Frederic, when you love you wish to do things for. You wish to sacrifice for. You do not think of what you will receive. Rinaldi is the novel's wound that keeps moving. He starts as the life of every room, loud, funny, brilliant at surgery, convinced that pleasure is the only reasonable response to absurdity. By the end, he is hollowed. The war has done to him what it couldn't quite do to Frederic. Because Frederic escaped, the novel's structure mirrors its theme. Book 1, the world of the front defined, contained with its own brutal logic. Book 2, Milan, escape from the logic into love. Books 3 and 4, the return to the world's logic, inescapable. Book 5, the end that was always waiting. The novel has almost no villains. The war is not personified. The generals are absent. The system is simply there, immense, indifferent, grinding. Hemingway was careful not to assign blame. The rain falls on everyone. That is the argument, the food and drink. Hemingway catalogs it in precise, loving detail. The wine, the cheese, the grappa, the specific restaurants, the menace. This is not decoration, it is an argument. The pleasures of life are real and specific and worth naming, even when everything around them is collapsing. The horse races, they go twice in Milan. Frederic bets poorly. Catherine watches the horses rather than the odds. A small scene, but Hemingway gives it space. Because it is one of the few scenes where they are simply two people doing an ordinary thing, and that is enough. The billiard game with Count Greffy. This scene has been called the most philosophical in the novel. The Count is 94. He has outlived religion, certainty, ambition, most of his friends. He is not sad about this. He plays billiards and watches Frederic with something like affection. Greffy asks Frederic what he believes in. Frederic says in sleep. Greffy finds this satisfactory. He says he hoped Frederic would say love. Frederic says he believes in that too. The Count nods and takes his shot. It is the most Hemingway has allowed God into the novel. Sleep. Frederic says he believes in sleep. On a night like tonight. That is not a small thing to believe in. Sleep is where the day stops requiring something of you. That's what this book has always been offering, really, a place where the requiring stops. The rowing scene. 35 kilometers across Lake Maggiore in the dark and the rain. Hemingway gives it 11 pages. He describes the blisters, the rain, the darkness, the changing of position, the exhaustion. He does not rush it. Because they are earning Switzerland one stroke at a time. Catherine asks, partway across, if he would like her to row. He says no. She says she could spell him for a while. He says no. This is love. In Hemingway, two people who know each other well enough to have the conversation and the subtext at the same time. The Swiss shore arriving at dawn. Gray, pine trees, a different sky. Hemingway doesn't make it triumphant. He makes it specific. The color of the water changing. The sound of the oars different against the shallows. They've made it. The novel doesn't cheer. Switzerland in the novel is almost a dream. Clean, ordered, neutral. Snow on the pines, wood fires, the lake below gray and patient. The war does not exist here. Not for them, not yet. Hemingway gives them a whole winter of it. This is his generosity. They walk in the snow. They eat together, they read. Frederic grows a beard and then shaves it at Catherine's request. These are small details, and they are the whole point. This is Hemingway's version of happiness-y, specific, modest, present tense, and therefore unbearably fragile. Catherine's fear of the rain deepens in Switzerland. She mentions it again. She sees herself dead in it. The snow she is comfortable with, but the rain. Frederic tells her the rain won't hurt her. He is wrong, and both of them know it. The pregnancy is metaphor. Every reader eventually notices the thing that should be life. A baby, a future, the continuation, is what destroys her. The war didn't kill Catherine. The attempt at life killed her. This is the novel at its most devastating. The Lausanne hospital, the move from Montreux to the city. Everything becomes more formal. The hotel, the paperwork, the doctors. Catherine packs her things slowly. She looks at the lake for a long time before she closes the case. The novel is almost over and she knows it. 12 hours. Then more. The doctor is competent and honest. He explains each stage, each decision. Catherine receives it all with the steadiness that has been her defining quality since the garden. She is braver in this room than Frederic has been in any room in the novel. The cafe across the street. Frederic eating and not tasting it. The coffee. The window. The hospital doors. He watches a man go in and come out and cannot tell from the face what the face means. He goes back in. It was like saying goodbye to a statue. That sentence. Hemingway chose it over 46 other endings. The statue. What does it mean? She is already gone before she is gone. She has become permanent, fixed, unreachable. Or she has become art. Or he has. He walked back to the hotel in the rain. No adjective. No interpretation. Just the fact of a man walking in the rain after the worst thing. Hemingway said once that if you get the facts right, the emotion will be there without you having to put it there. He was right. This is why the novel lasts. Not because it resolves anything. Because it doesn't. Because it replicates, with great precision, the feeling of loss that refuses to be made meaningful. You have felt this. That is why the last page stays with you. You don't have to hold all of this. Let some of it go. The images will carry what the words don't need to. The mountains are still there. The lake is still there. The rain on the water is just rain now. Let it be just rain. The novel in context. 1929 was the year it was published. Also the year the stock market crashed. The world Hemingway was writing about, the certainties that the war destroyed, was about to be destroyed again by the Depression. The timing was not accidental. The modernist novel. Hemingway was part of a generation, Joyce, Woolf, Faulkner, who were breaking apart the Victorian novel's confidence in narrative resolution, in moral clarity, in the idea that stories have satisfying endings. A Farewell to Arms is the American version of this breaking. Woolf said the novel was a man's book, by which she meant it was about a man's experience of war and love, from inside a man's perceptions. She was right. She also said the writing was extraordinary. She was right about that too. Fitzgerald read the manuscript in galleys. He wrote to Hemingway, "You are the king of this." He also noted a passage he felt was sentimental, and Hemingway cut it. This is what literary friendship looked like in Paris in the 20s. Brutal and affectionate in equal measure. Scribner's editor Maxwell Perkins. He worked with Hemingway for decades. Also worked with Fitzgerald, Woolf, Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. He is the invisible presence behind the clean final text. The one who said this paragraph, not that one. The one who helped choose the rain, the censorship, Boston Bandit, the city's watch and word society, guardians of public morality, found the content obscene, the profanity, the sex, the suggestion that a man's individual conscience might supersede his military obligation. All of this was dangerous, they said. They were right that it was dangerous. The ban made it sell faster everywhere else. Books that are banned tend to find readers who need exactly what the ban is trying to prevent, which is the feeling that your private experience is real and not shameful. That is all the novel was offering. That was enough to frighten Boston. 80,000 copies in 4 months. Then more than the translations. Into German, before the Nazis burned it in 1933, into Italian. Mussolini's government banned it almost immediately. The novel was apparently dangerous to several different kinds of power. This is usually a good sign. The 1932 film, Gary Cooper as Frederick, Helen Hayes as Catherine. The studio insisted on changing the ending. Catherine survives in the film version. Hemingway was furious. He said the ending was the whole point. He was right, and the film is mostly forgotten. The 1957 film, Rock Hudson and Jennifer Jones. Another alternate ending filmed. This time Hemingway was consulted and still dissatisfied. Hollywood kept trying to find a version of the story that didn't end in the rain. There isn't one. The rain is the ending. The style that spread. Hemingway's sentences became the template for American prose in the 20th century. Journalism, advertising, crime fiction, literary fiction. Short, declarative, specific. No adverbs if you could help it. Trust the noun and the verb. Everything else is commentary. What the style hides. Hemingway's short sentences look simple. They are not. Each one is precisely positioned. Each pause is calculated. The apparent simplicity is the result of extreme craft. The iceberg submerged, holding up the small visible surface. Imitators. There were thousands. There still are. They wrote short sentences about drinking and hunting and women and called it Hemingway. What they missed, the grief under the control. The thing that makes the sentences tight is what they're holding in. Remove the grief, and the sentences just sound clipped. The mythology of Hemingway. The hunter, the fisherman, the boxer, the bullfight aficionado, the war correspondent, the man who went toward danger. This mythology obscures the actual work, which is about people trying to love each other in the middle of forces larger than they can manage. The actual work. In the hospital in Milan, Frederic counts the ceiling tiles coming out of anesthetic. In the retreat, he notes the exact caliber of rifle carried by the men around him. In Switzerland, he describes the exact shade of the lake. Hemingway always noticed. That was the practice. The novel is also very funny in places. People forget this. Rinaldi's monologues, the confusion of the Italian bureaucracy, the Swiss border police and their forms. Hemingway's humor is dry and fast and easy to miss if you're reading for the grief. The wine. Frederic drinks a lot of wine. So does everyone in the novel. Hemingway spent time explaining to an interviewer that the wine in his books was not alcoholism. It was the specific pleasure of a specific thing, named exactly as an argument against abstraction. The priest's village. He comes from the Abruzzi, the mountains of central Italy, very traditional, very Catholic. He invites Frederic to visit. Frederic never goes. At the end, he says he always meant to. This is one of the novel's quietest regrets. The visit that would have been good and wasn't made. The roads. Hemingway was obsessed with roads. Where they go, what they cost, who travels them. The mountain road to the front, the retreat road to the river, the road to Stresa, the road to Lausanne. Every road in the novel leads somewhere that costs something. The novel ends where it began, in rain. Book 1 opens with autumn rain. The novel closes with Frederic walking in the rain. The circle is complete. The war, the love, the escape, the loss, the rain on everything, at the end, as at the beginning. Rain that falls on everyone. That is the novel's last word, really. Not Frederic's grief. Not Catherine's courage. Not the war's indifference. Just rain. Falling without judgment on the retreat road, and the Swiss lake, and the hospital window, and the street outside. Rain that does not distinguish. That is the argument. We've been with this novel for a while now. The story. The man who wrote it. The war underneath it. Let the pace slow from here. You don't have to follow every word. Let the images carry you if the sentences start to blur. Let's spend some time with what the novel asks us to feel, not think, but feel. Because Hemingway's argument is ultimately emotional, not intellectual. The sentences are built to arrive in the body before the mind catches up. The feeling of the novel is this: you are trying to hold something, and the world is not trying to take it. The world simply doesn't notice it exists. That is different from tragedy. Tragedy requires an antagonist. This is something harder to name. Not tragedy. Something else. The Greeks had tragedy, fate working against the hero, the gods involved, the arc bending toward a meaningful doom. Hemingway's world has no gods, no fate, just weather and bodies and the things bodies need and lose. This is what made the novel radical in 1929. The Victorian novel believed in meaning, in providence, in character determining destiny, in suffering that instructed. Hemingway's novel believes in none of this. Suffering happens. That's all. The reader is left holding it, and yet readers found comfort in it. Still do, because what the novel offers, in place of meaning, is company. You are not alone in this. The man walking in the rain at the end is not alone. You are there too. The other great war novel of this era, All Quiet on the Western Front. Remark 1929, same year. The German side, the same exhaustion, the same randomness, the same ending without resolution. Two writers on opposite sides of the same war arriving at the same conclusion. There is no conclusion. Wilfred Owen, Siegfried Sassoon, the British war poets. They were angrier than Hemingway, more direct about the betrayal, more willing to name the generals and the politicians. Hemingway left the generals out entirely. His war has no one to blame. This is either more honest or more evasive. The argument continues. Vera Britton's Testament of Youth, published 1933, 4 years after A Farewell to Arms. A woman's account, her fiancé, her brother, her friends, all dead. She named it differently, not the separate piece, but the collective wound. The two books belong together. The anti-war novel. Some critics resist calling A Farewell to Arms anti-war, because Hemingway doesn't argue against the war, doesn't editorialize, doesn't give you a speech, but the novel's entire emotional logic is anti-war. You feel it in the body. That's stronger than a speech. Frederic's desertion has been called the first great act of conscientious objection in American fiction. He doesn't object on principle, he just stops. He makes a separate peace with himself. He chooses his life. The novel treats this with neither approval nor condemnation. The Vietnam generation read it differently. For American readers of the 1960s and 70s, Frederic's separate piece was not a historical curiosity. It was a live option. The novel sold again. The ending arrived in a different era and said the same thing. The novel's relationship with masculinity. Hemingway has been accused of writing a masculine ideal, stoic, competent, emotionally contained, but Frederic weeps. He is frightened, he runs. He is entirely insufficient to the losses the novel hands him. The stoicism is a manner, not a truth. What the novel does for men who have been told not to feel, it gives them a container. The short sentences, the weather, the wine, the specific facts, a way of feeling something very large by staying very close to the surface of things. This is why men who don't read novels often read this one. What the novel does for women. It shows a woman who is taken seriously by the narrative, even when the narrator doesn't fully see her. Catherine's intelligence, her courage, her prophecy, all there, underneath the surface of what Frederic reports. You can read her around him. The novel has been taught in high schools for 60 years, often badly. With quizzes on plot and themes, the war context summarized in a paragraph, the ending explained. What gets lost in the explaining is the experience. The novel is an experience, not an argument. It needs to be felt. Reading it again. Many people who read A Farewell to Arms in school find it different in their 30s or 40s. The loss lands differently when you've lost something. The love reads differently when you've loved someone long enough to know what it costs. The rain. If you are very nearly asleep, that's fine. Let the rain be just rain. Let the lake be just water. Let Frederic walk in the dark without you having to follow every step. You've been with him a long way already. The rest is just rain. What endures? The novel is not remembered for its plot. Most readers couldn't give you a clean summary. It's remembered for how it felt. The mountains, the rain, the hospital room, the lake at night. These are the things that stay. The hospital in Milan. Afternoon light on the rooftops. A man counting ceiling tiles. A nurse who transferred because she wanted to. Two people falling in love in a room where the war has been kept out for a little while. That's the heart of it. The love story is real. For all the critical argument about Catherine's characterization, the love between these two people is rendered with great tenderness. Hemingway cared about it. You can feel that he cared. The tenderness is in the sentences, even when the sentences are trying to be tough. "You are my religion," Frederic tells her. He means it. It is not a speech. It comes out quietly in a conversation about other things. This is how Hemingway writes the most important sentences. Quietly. Between other sentences. As if they didn't know they were important. The scenes between Frederic and the priest are underread. They contain the novel's most direct philosophical conversation about love, service, sacrifice, whether God exists in a war that makes the question absurd. The priest answers the questions. Frederic listens. He doesn't convert, but something shifts. The question the priest asks, and Frederic can't answer, is whether Frederic loves Catherine the way the priest means love. Not wanting, not needing, but giving. The rest of the novel is Frederic learning whether the priest was right. He learns too late to use the knowledge. Rinaldi's collapse. This happens mostly off-screen. Hemingway shows us Rinaldi before and after, but not the breaking itself. By the time Frederic returns to the front in autumn, Rinaldi is already different. The surgery that was his gift has become his burden. He operates, and the front sends more. There is a suggestion in the novel, never quite stated, that Rinaldi has syphilis. The symptoms Hemingway describes. The doctor's evasions. Hemingway was writing around the censors, but the implication is there for readers who know what to look for. Another casualty of the war that isn't on the official lists. The novel's survivors. Piani survives. The one soldier who stayed with Frederic through the retreat, who didn't desert and didn't get shot and didn't drown. He is the most ordinary man in the novel. Hemingway gives him almost no interiority. Perhaps that is the point. The Count, he is 94. He has lived through everything. The Risorgimento, 2 major European wars, the death of everyone he knew in his youth. He is not bitter, he is interested. He finds Frederic interesting. He says, "The world breaks everyone." The afterword he doesn't say is Hemingway's. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places. That sentence is from A Farewell to Arms. It is the most quoted line Hemingway ever wrote. It appears near the middle of the novel, quietly, between other sentences. He almost buried it. The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But those that will not break it kills. It kills the very good and the very gentle and the very brave impartially. Catherine is very good, very gentle, very brave. The novel told you what would happen. The sentence does not offer consolation. It offers company. There is a difference. Consolation says it will be all right. Company says, I know this shape of thing. You are not the first to walk in the rain after. And you will not be the last. The novel's relationship with time. It covers about 3 years, 1915 to 1918. But it doesn't feel long. Each scene is very present. Hemingway's present tense of observation. The past tense narrative creates a strange double awareness. This is over, and it is happening now. The first line. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. Read it slowly. Where is already there. Already the two of them before they've met. The novel starts and they're together. But the woman hasn't appeared yet. The of the first chapter is the officers, Rinaldi and the others. But it anticipates the that becomes the novel's center. Hemingway setting the pronoun that the whole book will have to earn, the last line. After a while I went out and left the hospital and walked back to the hotel in the rain. The shift from to I. The novel ends where the love began. Before it arrived, he is alone again, the is over. The novel as elegy. An elegy is a poem for the dead. A Farewell to Arms is a novel-length elegy. For Catherine, for the baby, for the youth that the war consumed, for the world before 1914 that nobody got back. Hemingway wrote it like a man who knew he was writing something he couldn't fix. The baby who doesn't survive has no name in the novel. Hemingway gives the reader no name to hold. This is the iceberg again. The grief of the unnamed child is below the surface, working on the reader without being directly addressed. You feel it more for not having a name to put on it. What Hemingway knew about grief. He lost friends in the war. He came close to dying himself. His father died by his own hand when Hemingway was 29, the year of this novel's publication. The novel was written inside grief and beside it at the same time. He never wrote about his father's death directly. He wrote around it, into Frederic's losses, into the novel's understanding of how grief moves through a person without resolution. The iceberg holds the personal loss below the surface of every page. If you are very nearly asleep now, good. That is the right place to be. The novel will still be here in the morning. The mountains will still be there. The lake will be the same gray-blue. Let the rest of the night be quiet. Let's walk through the novel one more time, slowly. Not the events, the images, the things that stay. The mountain road in the late summer dust. The officers mess with the candles and the wine. The garden at dusk where Frederic and Catherine first spoke. The rattan stick she carried, her dead fiancé's. She held it in the garden when they met. She didn't explain it. He didn't ask. An object that contains a whole grief, passed over in the first meeting, never returned to. The iceberg, the mortar round at dinner, the cheese on the table, the candles still burning after. Hemingway understood that violence arrives in the middle of ordinary things, not instead of them. The cheese and the wound in the same moment. That is the novel's physics. The train to Milan, drifting in and out. The mountains becoming plains. Pain at a distance. The countryside moving like a very slow film. These are the moments Hemingway renders best. Consciousness at the edge of itself. The world arriving in fragments. The river, cold, fast, dark. The Tagliamento at night. He went under and came up somewhere else. The man who went in and the man who came out were not quite the same. The river made the separation he was trying to make. The reunion in Stresa. He crosses the lobby. She stands. Oh, darling. These two words. Hemingway gives you 2 words for a reunion that covers 300 miles and a river and a war. The understatement holds more than any speech would. Dark water and rain and blisters, and no visible shore. 35 kilometers. Hemingway gives it 11 pages because it earns 11 pages. Because you have to feel the length of it, the weight of it, the cost of the distance between war and safety, the Swiss shore arriving, gray pine trees, shallow water, the sound of the oars changing dawn, no fanfare. They have arrived somewhere safe, and the novel knows it will not hold. Switzerland receives them politely and begins the final movement. The winter in Montreux, snow on the pines, the chalet window, the fire, the ordinary happiness. Frederic shaves his beard. They walk in the snow. They eat. They are for this winter simply people. Not a lieutenant, not a nurse, not a war, just people. Spring coming. The snow retreating up the slopes. Catherine watching the season arrive with something like dread. The rain replacing the snow. The move to Lausanne beginning. The final movement beginning. Slow, inevitable, the way real things end. Lausanne, the hospital, the wait. The cafe across the street, the coffee going cold. The news coming in stages, complications, surgery, then the corridor, then the doctor's face, then the room, then the street, the rain. He walked back to the hotel. The lake was there. The mountains were there. The rain was the same rain, and none of it helped, and none of it was supposed to help. The world does not adjust. You adjust, or you don't. The novel doesn't tell you which. This is what A Farewell to Arms leaves you with, not an answer, a feeling. The feeling of having been somewhere real with two people who tried and the world that didn't notice. That feeling is the point. It will be there in the morning when you wake. The story is over. The context is given. The argument about meaning has been had. What remains is the feeling, and you can carry that as lightly or as heavily as you need to. Let the night do what it does. Let the lake be water. Let the rain be rain. Let the mountains hold the night. The Isonzo still runs to the sea. Lake Magor still receives the rain. The Swiss chalet still stands on the hillside above Montreux. The novel still ends in the same place it always ended. And that is enough, for tonight, the pace slows from here. Zone B. Shorter segments, softer landings. Let the words come to you rather than going to meet them. The novel has been told. What remains is the world it came from, and the world it made. What did World War I do to literature? It ended a kind of confidence. The confidence that stories have arcs, that suffering produces wisdom, that the world is arranged around human meaning. The novels that came after had to find a different architecture. Henry James died in 1916. Too early to see what the war did to the novel he'd spent his life building. The elaborate architecture of consciousness, the long sentences, the moral weight. The writers who came after stripped it down to the studs. T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, 1922, 7 years before A Farewell to Arms. The poem that named the decade. Fragments, no narrative arc. The ruins of the old forms, assembled into something that doesn't resolve. Hemingway did the same thing in prose. The expatriates in Paris. They gathered because Paris was cheap and free and far from the countries that had broken them. They wrote in cafes and argued in bookshops and read each other's work and tried to make sense of what surviving had left them with. Gertrude Stein told Hemingway his early stories were inapproachable, unhangable, not fit to display. He learned from this. She also told him his sentences were getting better. He learned from that too. The relationship between mentor and student is complicated. So was there. Ezra Pound. He edited everyone, cut ruthlessly, told Hemingway to trust the short line. Hemingway did. He also told Eliot to cut The Wasteland by half. Eliot did. The 1920s were the decade of editors who were also writers, which made them both better and more difficult. Sherwood Anderson. He is the least remembered of the influences on the young Hemingway. But Anderson read the early stories and said, "Keep going." He wrote the introduction that got Hemingway's first book published. Debts in literature are rarely acknowledged as clearly as they should be. The Kansas City Star, before Paris, before the war, almost. Hemingway at the Star followed their style guide: short sentences, strong verbs, no adverbs, no slang, no jargon. He internalized it so completely that it became his own. The journalist made the novelist. He was wounded in July 1918. He spent 6 months in Milan recovering. He fell in love. He went home. Agnes wrote the letter. He spent the next decade writing his way back to that summer, to understand what had happened to him there. The real Agnes, she married the Italian officer. The marriage failed within months. She wrote to Hemingway years later. The war was over. She was sorry she had been foolish. He didn't respond. By then he had written her into something permanent. She couldn't revise that. The real Pive. Hemingway was wounded on the Piave River, not the Isonzo. He moved the wound to the Isonzo for the novel. He changed names, shifted geography, combined people. The novel is not memoir, but every sentence knows where it came from. The wound changed him. He said afterward that he had felt his soul leave his body, and that when it came back it was not quite the same fit. This is not metaphor. He meant it as fact. He spent the rest of his writing life examining what he meant. He was awarded the Italian Silver Medal of Military Valor for carrying the wounded man while himself wounded. The medal is real. The citation is real. Hemingway the man was braver than Hemingway the myth, which is not something you can usually say. The Four Marriages. Hadley Richardson. Paris, The Lost Suitcase of the Early Manuscripts, The Left Bank Years. Pauline Pfeffer. Key West. African Safaris, A Farewell to Arms. Martha Gellhorn. Spain, The Second War, Journalism. Mary Welsh. Cuba, The Nobel, The End. Each Marriage, A New Geography. The Lost Manuscripts in 1922. Hadley packed Hemingway's early work to bring to him in Switzerland. And the suitcase was stolen at the Gare de Lyon. Nearly everything he'd written. Gone. He rewrote from memory what he could. Some things you cannot recover. The loss made him more careful. For Whom the Bell Tolls. 1940. The Spanish Civil War. Robert Jordan, 3 Days on a Bridge, A Woman Named Maria. The same template. Love in Wartime. The Separate Piece, The Loss at the End. Hemingway was still writing the same novel. He knew it. He didn't stop. The Old Man and the Sea, 1952. The one that won him the Nobel. Simpler than A Farewell to Arms. One old man, one great fish, the ocean. The same compression. The same iceberg. The same argument. You can be destroyed, but not defeated. The defeated are the ones who refuse to try. The Nobel citation said, for his mastery of the art of narrative and the influence he has exerted on contemporary style. The contemporary style part. That is the thing. He changed how English prose sounds. Not just literary prose, all of it. The Depression. In his last years, Hemingway was treated at the Mayo Clinic. Electroconvulsive therapy, twice. It damaged his memory. He could no longer hold the sentences. He told his friend A.E. Hochner, "What is the sense of ruining my head and erasing my memory, which is my capital, and putting me out of business?" The last years, he moved back to Ketchum, Idaho. The mountains, the country he had always gone toward when he needed space to be in pain. He died on July 2, 1961. He was 61. His father had been 57. The pattern in the fiction kept appearing in the life. What he left. The books, the sentences, the style that spread through the century like water finding its level, and the specific experience of reading A Farewell to Arms for the first time, at whatever age you were, in whatever city, in whatever state of your own life, the experience of reading it. Most people who have read it remember where they were. The kitchen table, the late train, the hospital waiting room, the summer before college, the year after the loss. Books that matter tend to arrive at the right time. This one has a gift for timing. What makes a novel last? Not complexity. Complexity becomes difficulty and difficulty becomes obstacle. Not length. Not moral instruction. What lasts is the feeling of having been somewhere true with someone who tried to tell you honestly what it was like. That is all, and it is very hard to do. The novel's truth is not historical accuracy. He moved rivers, changed names, compressed years. The truth is emotional. The feeling of love in wartime. The feeling of the retreat road. The feeling of the corridor outside the surgery. These are true in a way that facts are not. If you are asleep, good. The novel will still be here. The mountains will be there in the morning. Let the rest of the night be quiet. You have been a long way tonight and carried it well, the world the novel came from. Europe in 1914 was the most confident civilization in human history, the most technologically advanced, the most self-assured in its imperial reach, the most certain of its own permanent ascendance. 4 years later, none of that was true. The Western Front, the trenches, the mud, the wire, the same ground taken and lost 100 times. The Somme, 60,000 British casualties in a single day. The Verdun, 300 days of battle for a few kilometers of French soil. These are the numbers behind the novel. The Italian front was different. Mountains instead of mud, the Isonzo instead of the Somme. But the arithmetic was the same. By the end of the war, Italy had lost 600,000 dead, a country of 36 million, 1 in 60. Every family, the ambulance drivers, the American volunteers who drove the wounded away from the front, the Red Cross, the Norton Harjes Ambulance Corps. John Dos Passos drove ambulances. E. Cummings was arrested driving one. Hemingway drove one. The ambulance was where American writers met the war. Dos Passos and Hemingway. They were friends. In Italy, in Paris, through the 20s and 30s. Then Spain divided them. Dos Passos wanted to investigate the execution of a Spanish Republican friend. Hemingway told him to let it go. The cause was more important. The friendship didn't survive the argument. The nurses who read the novel. Letters arrived from nurses who had served in WWI, British, American, Canadian. They said, yes, this is close. Not exact, but close. They said Catherine was not quite right, too much the man's dream of a nurse. But the hospital, the work, the exhaustion, that was right. The soldiers who read it. Veterans of WWI who were still alive when the novel was published. They were 35, 40 years old. They read it and recognized it the way you recognize a place in a painting that you've been to. Not the exact place, but the feeling of the place. The readers who came to it without the war. The generation after, who knew about the war from books rather than from being in it. They found in the novel something different, the feeling of loving something you cannot keep. That is not only about war, that is about everything. The readers tonight. You, wherever you are, whatever brought you to this novel on this particular night. The specific reason doesn't matter to the novel. The novel receives everyone the same way, with the rain and the mountains, and the sentences that know what they're carrying, what the novel offers on a night like tonight. Company. The sense that someone has been here before you. In this exact territory of exhaustion and feeling, and the night that won't quite end, and left a record of it. That record is the novel. That company is Hemingway. The word rest. Hemingway uses it carefully. When Frederic rests in the Milan hospital in Switzerland, it is not escape from the story. It is the story. The rest is what the whole book is moving toward and being denied. Tonight, the rest is available to you. The rest is available to you. The lake is there. The mountains are there. The novel has ended, and the rain has fallen, and Frederic has walked back to the hotel, and you have been with him all the way. You can let go now. The world the novel made. After A Farewell to Arms, war novels changed. The heroic war narrative became harder to write, or at least harder to write seriously. The novel had described what the front actually felt like from the inside, and the heroic version no longer fit comfortably beside it. New BBI writers, Norman Mailer, James Jones, Joseph Heller, they read Hemingway. Heller's Catch-22 is what you get when you take Hemingway's refusal to assign meaning to war and push it into black comedy. The same absurdity. Different register. The influence moves through the form like water through rock. Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, 1990. The Vietnam version. The same structure, a man who was there, trying to tell the truth about it, finding that the truth requires invention, that the facts alone do not convey the feeling. O'Brien, read Hemingway. The iceberg runs through all of them. Sebastian Faulks's Birdsong, 1993. The British version of the same war. More explicit about the trenches, more willing to name the generals. But the love story at the center, the loss at the end. Hemingway's architecture, built differently but from the same grief. The novel in translation. A Farewell to Arms has been translated into 40 languages. The short sentences. In theory, easier to translate. In practice, the pauses, the rhythm, the weight of what's left out. These are almost untranslatable. Each language had to find its own version of the iceberg. The Japanese translator said the hardest sentence was the last one. After a while I went out and left the hospital and walked back to the hotel in the rain. He said the Japanese language wanted to add something. A feeling word, a qualification. He resisted the impulse. The resistance was the translation. The Italian response. Italy, which banned the novel under Mussolini, has since made it a school text. The country in which the events are set now teaches the Americans' account of it. This is the kind of irony that requires a century to complete. The landscape today. You can visit the Isonzo Valley. You can walk the Retreat Road. There are monuments at Caporetto, now called Kobarid, in Slovenia. The river still runs the same direction. The limestone still rises the same way. The war is in the ground under the hiking trails. Lake Maggiore. You can stay at the Grand Hotel in Stresa. It still operates. The billiard room is still there, though Count Greffy is not. The dock where they took the boat is still there. The lake is the same dark gray blue. The mountains across it are Switzerland. Switzerland. Montreux is still there. The Chalet district above the lake, the vineyards on the terraces, the lake gray, blue below. Lausanne is still there. The hospital still operates, though it has been rebuilt. The rain still falls on the same streets Frederic walked in. The rain still falls. This is not a metaphor. It rains in Lausanne. It rains on Lake Geneva. The Alps produce weather. The weather produces rain. The rain falls on the hospital where the novel ended, on the streets Frederic walked, on the lake that held the rowing. Some facts endure without needing to mean anything, and the novel keeps being read. In Italian high schools and American universities, and on night trains and in hospital waiting rooms, and on phones at 3 in the morning when sleep won't come. The world breaks everyone. The novel keeps the company of the broken. That is its gift. That has always been its gift. We're in the final stretch now. Zone B still, short sentences, slower pace. If you're nearly asleep, stay there. What follows is quiet. Just the legacy of the novel, and then the long wind down to the night. The novel's legacy begins with its sentences. They changed what English sounded like, not just in fiction, but in journalism, in advertising, in the way public figures learn to speak. Short, direct, no hedging. Trust the noun. The Hemingway sentence became the default sentence of the American century. The war novel after Hemingway, Norman Mailer's The Naked and the Dead, 1948. Du Bois, The Pacific. Bigger, angrier, more explicit. But the same refusal of heroism. The same attention to the body in extremity. Mailer said Hemingway was the greatest writer of the century, then spent his career arguing with him. James Jones's From Here to Eternity, 1951. Pearl Harbor. The Soldier Who Doesn't Fit. The Love That Can't Be Kept. Jones had the novel in his head for years before he wrote it. He said he was trying to do what Hemingway did. Make the feeling of war real without explanation. Catch-22, Joseph Heller, 1961. The same year Hemingway died, the same war, WWI, but the absurdity pushed all the way into black comedy. Where Hemingway stayed near the surface of things, Heller dove into the logic and found it circular and insane. Both were right, the things they carried. Tim O'Brien, 1990. Vietnam, the same problem Hemingway solved in his way. How do you tell the truth about war when the truth is too large for facts? O'Brien's answer was metafiction. Stories that know they are stories, confessing their own invention. Hemingway would have hated it stylistically. He would have recognized what it was trying to do. The love story lineage. A Farewell to Arms sits in a tradition of wartime loves that cannot survive the war. Romeo and Juliet, La Traviata, Casablanca. But where those stories place the lovers against external obstacles. Family, disease, political necessity. Hemingway places them against weather, against the world's indifference. The obstacle is not a person, it is everything. The cinematic adaptations, 3 in total, 1932-1957, and an Italian television production in 1966. None of them found the ending. Hollywood kept trying to give Catherine a survival. Italian television let her die, but gave Frederic a closing speech. Hemingway gave him rain and a walk. The novel wins. The novel in popular culture. The world breaks everyone. That line has been quoted in films and speeches, on greeting cards and eulogies. Usually without attribution. Usually without the second half. The part about the very good and the gentle and the brave. The full sentence is harder to quote. It doesn't comfort. It is only true. The Hemingway myth versus the Hemingway work. The myth, the macho writer, the hunter, the drinker, the boxer, the man who performed masculinity. The work, novels about people who can't hold what they love, who run from things they should stay for, and stay for things they should run from. The work is more honest than the myth. What readers carry from the novel. Not the plot. Most can't give you chapter by chapter. Not the themes. Most couldn't write the essay. They carry the feeling of the hospital room in Milan, the feeling of the retreat road in the rain, the feeling of rowing in the dark. These are the things that stay. The feeling of the retreat. Many readers who have never been near a war say the Caporetto retreat is the most frightening thing they have read, not because of the violence. Hemingway is restrained about the violence. Because of the dissolution, the individual disappearing into the mass. That fear is not only about war. The feeling of the river, cold, fast, dark, letting yourself go into it and trusting the current. Many readers say the Tagliamento swim stays with them longer than almost anything else in the novel. The surrender to something larger than you can manage. The coming up on the other side. The feeling of Switzerland. Many readers say the Swiss chapters are the novel's most painful, not because anything terrible is happening, but because you can see what is coming while they cannot. The happiness in those chapters is unbearable in the way that only borrowed happiness can be. 300 segments. We are halfway through the night. Let the pace soften further. Let the sentences be shorter. You don't need to follow every word from here. The novel will stay with you regardless. It has a way of doing that. The novel and grief. Many people read it while grieving. Some read it because they are grieving. Some find they were grieving without knowing it, and the novel names the shape of what they were carrying. This is what literature does at its best. Not explain, but name. The novel and love. Some people read it when they are newly in love. They find it frightening. The novel shows the cost so clearly. They read on anyway, because the love in it is real too, and the real is worth the cost. That calculation is the novel's argument for love. The novel and war. Some people read it during a war, not WI, but their war. Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine. The names of the places change. The retreat road is always the same road. The rain falls the same way. The novel is not about WWI. It happens to be set there. The novel and the night. It has always been a night book. The scenes that matter most happen in the dark. The mortar round at dinner, the river crossing, the rowing, the hospital corridor, the walk in the rain. The novel understands the night. It was written for it. Tonight, you have been with this novel since the first sentence. The mountains of northern Italy, the garden at dusk, the hospital in Milan, the retreat, the river, Stresa, the lake, Switzerland, Lausanne, the rain. You have been a long way. You can rest now. The mountains are still there. The Isonzo still runs south to the Adriatic. Lake Maggiore is still dark at night. Lake Geneva still holds the rain. These places were real before the novel and are real after it. The novel just made them mean something additional. The sentences are still there too. Short, direct, specific, carrying what they carry beneath the surface. He walked back to the hotel in the rain. That sentence is still there in the morning. It will be there in a year. It will outlast us all. That is what a good sentence does. Let the sentences slow down now. Let the images do more of the work. The lake, the mountains, the rain, the night, these are enough. You don't need more than this to fall asleep to. The lake at night, dark water, no wind. The mountains a dark line above the far shore. Switzerland in the small hours. The world arranged for nothing but quiet. The mountains at night, dark above the lake. The snow on the high peaks a faint white in the dark. The alpine quiet. The kind that comes when everything is very still and the altitude keeps the noise of the world below. The pines, very still. The needles holding a little snow from earlier in the week. The branches barely moving. The lake below catching what light there is. The world patient and dark and quiet. The lake, the mountains, the pines, the night. This is what the novel gave Frederic and Catherine. This is what the novel gives you. The same geography, the same quiet. You don't have to hold on to any of it. Let it hold you instead. Frederic rode for hours in the dark and came out on the Swiss shore at dawn. The light was gray and the pines were gray, green, and the water was lighter than the sky. He had carried someone through the dark and arrived somewhere safe. That is enough for a night's work. You don't have to row anything tonight. The night doesn't require anything. The lake is there. The mountains are there. The pines are still. Let the current take you if there is one. There usually is. It goes where it goes. The novel ends in rain. The night is ending too. Not because you have to finish anything. Because the night moves at its own pace. Through the small hours and toward the place where sleep is deepest. Where the day has not yet started to ask things of you. The world breaks everyone. Afterward, many are strong at the broken places. You don't have to be strong tonight. Tonight is for the lake and the pines and the quiet. The strength, if it comes, comes in the morning. The rain in the novel is just rain. And tonight, if it is raining where you are, that is just rain too. Not a symbol, not a warning, just water falling on the world the way it always has. Let it, the mountains, just mountains. Limestone and snow and the dark, they were there before the war and after it, before the novel and after it. They don't know about Frederic or Catherine or the rain in the last sentence. They are just mountains. Tonight that is enough. The lake, just water, holding the dark and the rain and the reflection of the mountains on quiet nights. It has no opinion about the war or the novel or the people who loved each other in the chalet above it. It is just water. That is a very good thing to be. The night, just the night, moving through its own hours without asking your permission. You are somewhere in the middle of it, or the later part of it. And the early hours are ahead, the ones that belong to no one's schedule. Let the lake hold the night. Let the mountains hold the sky. Let the pines hold the stillness. Let the novel hold what the novel holds. You don't have to hold anything right now. The world is managing without you for a few hours. That is a gift. Take it. Hemingway said, write one true sentence, then write another. He spent his life doing this. Tonight you don't have to write anything. You just have to let the night be what it is. The true thing about tonight is that it is quiet. Let that be enough. The novel will be there in the morning. The rain will have passed or not. It doesn't require your intervention either way. The lake will be gray, blue in the daylight. The mountains will be there, and you will have been somewhere real tonight. That stays with you. Sleep well. The book will still be here tomorrow. So will the mountains and the lake and the rain, whenever it comes. And if tonight helped, even a little, that is enough. That has always been enough. The lake, the mountains, the pines, the dark, the night. That is where we leave it. That is where Hemingway would leave it too. Without ceremony, without a final speech, with just the things themselves and the silence after. This is the last file. Zone C now, shorter sentences, softer pace. Let the words come slowly. You don't have to follow everyone. The night is doing its work. Let it. The novel's last pages. Frederic in the hospital, the corridor, the door, then the room, then the street, then the rain. He walked back to the hotel in the rain. That is all. The novel trusts that sentence to carry everything. It does. 47 endings. He chose the rain. He was right. The rain asks nothing of the reader. It just falls. The rain falls on the lake. The lake holds it. The mountains hold the sky. The pines hold the stillness. Everything is holding something tonight. The world breaks everyone. Afterward, many are strong. Tonight, you don't have to be strong. Tonight is for the lake. Frederic rode through the dark. He came out on the other side. That is enough. You don't have to row anything tonight. The lake is there. The mountains are there. The pines are still. Let them be. Let everything be still for a while. The sentences are quiet now. Short. There's nothing left to explain. Just the night and the lake and the slow moving towards sleep. If you are asleep, good. The book will still be here. The lake will still be there. Nothing required of you now. The Isonzo still runs south. The river doesn't rest, you can. The pines above Montreux, very still. Snow on the high branches. The lake below, dark and patient. Lake Maggiore in the dark. The Italian shore on one side. Switzerland on the other. The water between them holding neither. The rain, if it comes, will fall on both shores equally. It always does. The mountains above the lake. Dark, very old, still. The night is its own country. You are in it now. Let it carry you. The pines, the lake, the dark, The slow hours, this is where the night lives. No more explaining. Just the images now, the lake at night, the mountains, the quiet, the water, the mountains holding the sky, rest, the rain on the lake, soft now, each drop a small circle, then gone. The pines still, the lake still, you can be still too. The mountains hold the dark holds the quiet holds you, let it. The night is nearly done with its work. So are we, so are you. The lake, the mountains, the novel, all of it still here, none of it going anywhere. You have been somewhere real tonight, somewhere that costs something to build and something to read. Sleep well, the sentences will be there in the morning. The lake will be gray, blue. The mountains will be there. Tonight was enough. The book will still be here tomorrow. So will the rain when it comes. So will the lake and the mountains and the quiet. Sleep well. The dark, the still pines, good night. The mountains, the lake, the rain that falls on everything, good night. The dark, the still, rest now. The novel ends in rain. The night ends in quiet. Both are good endings. The lake, still, dark, patient. It will be there when you wake. The mountains, still, dark, old, they will be there too. The pines still. The lake, still, you, still, good night. The lake, the mountains, the dark, the quiet, good night.